There. And welcome back to PSA TV. I have on set with me attorney at law Richard Jaggasar. Good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning, Casey. Thanks for having me as always.
Yes. And he's also a former, I worked with him, well, not directly, but I would have seen him in my first stint in media from the ground up.
We can agree, I think we all can agree that we work together insofar as promoting the working class rights is concerned. Yeah, that's a simple way to put it.
Yeah, we didn't work directly with each other, but we go a long way back. And speaking about working class, some fun and interesting times ahead?
Yes, some fun and interesting and politically interesting times ahead.
Yes. But you know, would you think we have an election, a local government elections around the corner?
Oddly enough, no. And I think it's partly because the election was called without any kind of notice. Everything started happening basically overnight. I think a lot of people were caught off guard. So because of that, we're not feeling it. But I can tell you something, by the end of the month, we will be.
That's true. And the only thing that makes me actually think that something political is happening is around the savannah there, where you see the PNM is actually putting up some things. Other than that, that's the aesthetics in it. But I mean, on the ground, you're not really seeing anything. Not that I expect anything, or not that, you know. But you know, usually around local government elections, this is where they take the opportunity to rush. If you want a drain fix, if you want a pothole fixed, you know, this is their opportunity to do so. But you're not even seeing that.
Exactly. So some political pundits might say it's because they're saving their resources for the general, they're saving their finances for the general. But then what's the opposition's excuse? They should have been doing some work, they should have been pressuring their respective corporations and boroughs for financing for their people long in advance. We didn't see any of that. But nevertheless, we have a string of candidates. I think perhaps both sides are waiting until the 10th. I believe they're both launching all of their candidates on the 10th. Maybe by the 11th we'll start to see some.
Sunday is going to be a crazy day.
Indeed so.
In town here, and then in Couva, the UNC will be launching their campaign.
They're both launching.
So, what do you expect to see in this local government campaign?
All right. The unfortunate thing is that we have this local government campaign, which was, as we said, called in such a haste, and then shortly after we have a general coming up right after. So we're not expecting much to be done for local, and it's an unfortunate set of circumstances for the country, because the last time anything was done was in 2015, and the precursor to the 2015 general. So in other words, we have seen in the last four and a half years, we have seen very little development, social development. We have seen very little infrastructural development, and almost no economic development. So in those circumstances, it's unfortunate on a country, on a patriotic standpoint, it's very unfortunate. At the very most, I mean, I was listening to the Prime Minister give a rally in Tunapuna a couple of days ago, and he was talking about property taxes needed to clean drains and fix roads and so on and so on. But he has to understand that the regular citizen of Trinidad and Tobago no longer believes in more taxes for more benefits, simply because if you go to the hospital, there is no beds. If you go to the hospital, there is no medication. So, and we are paying taxes for those things now. The security is low nationwide. So if we are paying taxes for those things now, what kind of argument is it to say that you want more taxes for more? I'm not getting what I'm paying for as of now. So the country, bottom line, does not believe in that kind of rhetoric, does not believe in that kind of approach. Now, having said what I expect to see, let me tell you what I would have hoped to see. I would have hoped to see a lot more youth in politics.
Yes.
And a lot more progressive youths, you know, persons who don't see it as PNM and UNC, black and white, north and south, no. Persons who see it as up and down, persons who see it as the gap, the gap between the rich and the poor has never been wider than it is now, and we need to have persons in politics now who are youthful, who are mindful of that fact, and who understand that that is what needs to be fixing. Now, let me tell you something from my perspective. I don't care if you're UNC or PNM. If you have that mindset and you are youth in politics, I have faith in this country, and I have faith that no matter where you end up, we will work together and we will promote country. And that's the mindset we need. We need country first.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that. And even if you look at, there are some youths in, let's say, the UNC, for instance, but when it comes down to the actual betterment of the country, it's always party first.
There we go.
And you're not really seeing too many of these people doing anything for country. And we often say, well, you know, we're patriotic, but patriotic what? How?
Exactly.
Conveniently?
There we go. Now, to summarize your point, where are the youth arms of the both parties?
Oh my God, and you know, we were just talking about that.
Right.
Mr. Nicholas Morris, you know, he has been very prominent, holds a very prominent name, but when it comes down to actually seeing him doing something, I haven't really seen much.
Right. I totally agree with you, and the same goes on the P&M side. Where are the youth arms? That is the question. Now let me tell you what a youth arm ought to be doing at this stage. Both youth arms ought to be promoting and publicizing and being activists and advocates for youth legislation, youth rights, anti-bullying campaigns. They should be doing that. Education, school reform, they should be doing that. Promoting safe and secure sporting events, they should be doing that.
Health,
they're not doing any. Let me tell you what they are doing. Now that candidates are being nominated and campaigning, they find themselves on Facebook promoting the candidate, spewing the same rhetoric as their respective political leaders.
And it's a cycle.
Nonsense.
It's a cycle that you see time and time again, that again, nothing new is being introduced. You see the same thing being repeated over and over and over. And it brings into question, with the old mentality, how do you expect to go forward?
Right, there we go. Now, I like how you phrase that question, because what I believe, is, and I said it at the beginning, is that we need progressive youths.
Yeah.
Now let me put things into some perspective here. Do you know that the persons who are capable of voting for the first time in this election were born in 2000, 2001? Those persons never had the opportunity to write 1999 on anything.
Yeah.
You know what that means? They were born after 9/11. They were born after 2 world wars. They were born after the Vietnam failed war. They were born in a society where technology is at their fingertips. Whereas you and I and the older heads might know that it takes decades to make a change, and we accept that answer from the older heads. These people, these youths now, they want it in days.
Yeah.
Decades has turned to days for them. And that is where the progressive mindset comes from. And that is where the push comes from. So you cannot now tell a person who is now going to go to the poll for the first time that your idea is too radical. And we have to, now is not the right time and so on. They will not accept that because everything is instantaneous for them. Right. So let me give you an example of a radical idea. It is radical ideas that will help us fix the situation in Raymond Yard, what we may or may not call mass incarceration.
Yes.
The bottom line is they're waiting so long for trials, we call it mass incarceration. It is radical ideas that will fix that. It is radical ideas that will fix the lack of beds in the public health sector. It is radical ideas that will fix security in the streets. It is radical. Listen, I'll give you an example of a radical idea. We need, and I will say this, we need to dismantle, totally overhaul Public Service Commission. Who are they hiring? They're not hiring the young people. They're not hiring qualified people. They're just not doing their jobs. If a system has been implemented by the older heads and failed, a young person needs to come now, stand up and say, dismantle it and replace it with something better.
And you know, funny that you'll say that, because it is common knowledge that our working sector, our working population is slowly aging. And you have here, and I make this point over and over and over, many times, thousands of students come out of university hoping to get a job, and you just have the older ones in this position. You can't move them for whatever strange reason. Chances are they probably were hired by a friend, family, whatever it is. I mean, and you have youth unemployment just increasing day by day.
That's exactly it. And we're not seeing youths rising and saying, listen, I'm protesting, I want a job. I'm advocating, I want a job. I am qualified. You promised me if I did well in school, I will get a job. You as the government, you promised me that. You provided me with gate, and therefore I need to work back, I need to give back to my community. Give me an opportunity to do so. In China, you think they'll take this? South Africa, you think they'll take this? Look in Jamaica. Right now in Jamaica, they're protesting. There are politicians, and even in the case where the politician is a little bit aged, young people are around them. Let me ask you this. Every single prime minister and president that we have ever had in this country has been over the age of 50.
Yeah.
There are persons half that age doing more for this country. Half that age, 25 and 26-year-olds doing much more for various sectors. That is the kind of change that we need to see in this country. Those are the persons we look forward. Those are the persons we look for. You touched the university issue. I'll tell you this. On average, 1 in every 5 person around my age, between 20 to 35, 1 in every 5 is booking a flight and moving out.
Yeah, and then you hear the government saying, well, you know, it's a brain drain in the country, but why? Why do you think? I don't think anybody really wants to get up and go in. It's circumstances pushes many young people to just say, well, okay, I studied so hard. It doesn't have any opportunity for me out here. I'm just going to go. That's
exactly it. And we need to start changing that.
Yeah.
We need to have the mentality, and we need to have a country first mentality. Listen, you need, so let's say somebody wants to join politics in today's sphere. They have to toe the line. They aren't allowed to have their independent views. They aren't allowed to advocate for whatever cause they're looking at. And that needs to change. So let me tell you now, a young person who wants to get involved in politics, before we get there, let's say the person needs to have proper ethics, morals, and values. They need to be willing to fight, even if they're the only person in the room fighting for their cause. They need to be able to fight for that cause.
And I think most times, I'm not coming down on the youth, sir, but too many times we tend to not stand alone. We need to gravitate towards, okay, everybody doing this, I need to go there. And some people may very well be opposing it, you know, but you're still going along with it. It's almost as if we don't think for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mentality problem that we have. Maybe it was passed down. I don't know. I don't know where we get that idea from, that we need to always be doing what is popular, what is trending. And we can't think for ourselves and say, well, okay, here's what. The same way I'm going to follow these people, I'm going to stand up for my rights.
Exactly.
And I don't know if it is that people aren't aware of their rights.
I think it's basically that, and that
is no excuse, because you live in a day and age where, as fast as, I mean, we just heard that Trinidad and Tobago topped their searches for porn. The same way you're going to do that. Look at your rights. Half of the people out there, probably not just youths, if you ask them what is local government elections about, if you ask them what is local government about, they probably don't even know.
Exactly. So here what? They can keep the first 2 letters of the search and then type the word politics. Politics instead, and they might get something.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Parliament Channel and so on, they do these nice little documentaries that try and educate, and everybody has to do their part. That's the bottom line. Everybody has to. And if a youth is interested in politics, there must be avenues for him or her to explore that.
Yeah.
So say for example, somebody in a secondary school wants to be involved. Their only avenue is youth parliament, which comes around once a year, which selects one person from schools, only 41 secondary schools. After the child goes into university, that is dead in the water. No longer are we trying to promote that kind of experience, that kind of political experience. And therefore we lose that viable politician. We lose that interest, that fire, that burning desire in that person. And that person, for all we know, could have been the Minister of National Security who could have fixed the crime problem.
Yeah.
And we've lost that because we don't provide the system for him.
And even when you look at the inclusion of youths in political parties, it's always a matter of who you know.
Exactly.
It's never a fair system where, okay, we're naturally gonna recruit young people. It's always, okay, well, I know this one here. He's probably a relative or a friend of a friend. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but
it's very rare.
Yeah.
No, we call it as it is. It is very rare. There is a situation right now, and I'll say it because it has been accepted on the public record. Gopal Buran, the outgoing mayor of Shogunas Borough Corporation, his niece is now going up for a seat. He has admitted that on record. Now, so let's assume she went for screening.
Isn't that constitutionally wrong?
Well, the question is whether or not he is returning. So as a burgess of Shogunas, I am interested to know who is my mayor, because I'm telling you something. I'm looking at the candidates on both sides of the divide, PNM, Independent, and UNC, and I'm thinking, well, who is going to be my mayor? Because I'll tell you something, I have a few letters to send to them. And in fact, up to yesterday, I was calling a councillor in the area. I was calling to find out something about a drain and a road nearby to me, and he didn't answer. He did not answer. Wow. Now I could tell you something. If If it is the week before election, he will answer.
Of course. And again, that is the mentality those positions have. As long as it's elections, you see them stooping the lowest. I mean, you get them and you need some grass cut. Hey, look at me. I'm here. I'm ready to be at your service. As long as they of course. I mean, if you didn't get pictures, it really didn't happen. That's their belief. But in actuality, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be you're elected there for a reason, to serve in a position.
There we go.
Box drains do have a season. Drains do have a particular time of the year to be fixed. I mean, of course, we've seen it only being done around the elections, but...
Kirsty, let me tell you something. After I leave your studio here, I'll be walking back to the Hall of Justice, and the people I will pass on the road are all working class people heading to work, right? Their concerns are not going to be, well, what legislation are we going to push? Farris really going to do something? No, that's not what they're going to think about. Those working class people, they're thinking about the health sector. If their relative, they left in Mount Hope this morning, if he's still waiting on a chair, or if he has a bed. They're thinking about the fact that their children are in school, they're wondering whether or not they get any box lunch or the free school books and so on. They're thinking about the fact that when they go home tonight, they need to lock up and take off all light by 6 because they can't be outside.
Security.
Exactly. Listen, at the end of the day, after election, on December the 3rd in the situation, those concerns remain the same for those people.
Of course.
And they want somebody to represent them who looks like them, who understands what they have to say, and who feels what they feel. That is the bottom line of this country. They want somebody who knows where they're coming from. And that is what we need to see. And then you will start to see the divide, the gap closing between the older heads, the disenchanted, the disconnected. You will start to see the gap closing from them and getting things actually done.
I wonder if roles were to be reversed, if they would survive. Let's just put them in, I don't know, let's just say they were traveling. We're using regular taxis, heading to Port of Spain in the morning and you're going back home in the evening. Only then I think they would understand what the rest of the country goes through.
If you put a politician in a taxi, I totally agree with you.
And put them in a mega salary of what, like 4,000, 3,000?
A princely sum.
Yeah.
The same thing that they pay their government workers.
You paying people, you try to survive on that.
Exactly, so I totally agree with you.
And then you'll see tables turn and they start to protest. We'll see how it's going to work out.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. There is benefit in keeping some older heads around.
Of course.
So let's say, for example, a youth is involved in politics or involved in community activity. He or she needs to keep a mentor near to them.
Yes.
Now they must be very careful. They must pick a mentor that has high morals, values, ethics, a high judicial principle. They must have that mentor of a particular standard.
Yeah.
Because far too often we see our public officials walking out down the road there in handcuffs. That needs to stop. We need to keep, and I'll give you an example of what I believe a proper mentor should look like. 2006, 2007, Gillian Lucky and Fuad Khan. Those are persons who went to the backbench when they believed their ethics and morals stood strong. Yeah. So that is an example of what a mentor should look like. And if a mentor could be somebody in your community, it could be a priest, it could be a pastor, as the case, a pundit, as the case may be. But if you want to get involved in politics and community activity, those are the things you need. You need a mentor in a strong moral compass, and you need to be steady in your cause or causes, as the case may be.
And again, it brings me back to the point that we were talking about earlier, about people standing up for their rights.
Yes. And
not being so easily brainwashed. I have a big problem with young people just either one, well, it don't interest me, it don't benefit me, so I'm not doing it. If that was the mentality of our forefathers, we would not have been here today.
Exactly so.
And I feel like sometimes we just automatically think that, okay, 2 years or probably 2 months from now, it's not going to benefit me, so I don't really care about the future. We just live for the now. And we don't really think about our future. We don't think about our neighbors. We're not our brother's keeper anymore.
That's exactly.
So we just live, and we live like, okay, if tomorrow comes and I don't have a job, or I have a child, God forbid, I have a child tomorrow. Well, how will she survive? He or she survives. They survive. But that was not the mentality of our forefathers. They actually sat down and said, well, you know what? Let me fight. If I don't benefit from it, my generation to come will benefit.
That is a reality we need to push and push
Yeah.
and push, because let's look at some realities. A child born now, tomorrow, this year, a child born now will not be able to write SCA in a world where we have gas in Trinidad.
Yeah.
The heat that we have is due to climate change, and although we might be a small island, we can force other countries to do certain things. We can form agreements with islands up the chain and take certain stances. Listen, these are realities, you know. This is not something in a textbook that we read and it's going to change in like 10 years. And we need people to come forward. Now the time has gone. The time for waiting has gone. We need people to come forward now and say, I'm going to tackle that cause, I'm going to champion that issue, and I'm going to get it fixed in a radical manner as urgently as yesterday.
But then, on the one hand, we may very well have people wanting to do that. But then there's a clampdown on democracy with the introduction of these buses, that as soon as you have a protest, they could easily swoop down on you, put you in handcuffs, take you away. So how is a democratic society when you telling people on one hand, exercise your right, go ahead, protest. But on the other hand, you're just secretly waiting for them. Let me say you come outside.
That's exactly it. Now, I'll even add to your point. What happens on an election day when 51% of the population vote one way and 49 vote another? The 51 win is because of that win-all mentality that the 49 is disenchanted, the 49% of the population is disenchanted, and that is a serious problem. And that is why I believe in 2014, 2013, Basil Pandey started to advocate for proportional representation at the parliamentary level, and I stand by that. We need to have that kind of situation, because the 49% of people who voted one way, they are not represented at all, you know, and that is a serious problem we have. Now, to address your question directly, what we need, let's take the situation in UE, for example. You're telling the students, go and learn, educate yourself, and when they protest for security, you go down there with a busload of police, and you rough them up and you abuse them, and now they're in court. And I'm one of the lawyers on the case, of course. So I'm allowed to talk about it. Now, the issue with that is exactly what you were saying. How is it that you can tell them, stand up for yourself, and then when they stand up for themselves, you beat them down? That needs to stop, that needs to change, and I'll tell you, and ironically enough, you know how you stop it? You stand up and you stop it.
Yeah.
You go down to Prime Minister's house and you say, listen, I have a point to make. When I make the point, you leave me alone, and end the story.
Because as far as we're concerned, it's a democratic society.
That's exactly.
And I am just exercising my rights. So much we need to fix in this country, you know. Like sometimes you sit and you think, where do you start? As much as, and don't get me wrong, Trinidad and Tobago is a beautiful place. We have so much to celebrate, but as much as we have so much to celebrate, we have so much to fix. In your opinion, what is the first thing we should tackle?
Well, I think it's different for every individual. Communities are different, your causes are different. What you need to do is take the first step. If the first step
And what's our first step?
I could tell, my first step was talking to my father. My first step was saying, Daddy, listen, I have some issues in my area. I don't know what to do. And then he started talking to me. My uncle started talking to me. My aunt started talking to me. And we said, listen. You need to start writing some articles and sending it to the editor of all these papers and see what happens. You have something. They sat me down and I said, listen, you have something to say. Say it.
Yeah.
And who has to hear it will hear it. And so I started. So if your cause in your area is sports, if your cause in your area is building a community center, if your cause in your area is agriculture, start promoting the cause. Not yourself, start promoting the cause.
Yeah.
And offer solutions. Like throughout this discussion, I said certain problems and I offer certain solutions. Do that. And then eventually, you will start seeing checks on boxes. People will start listening. And when people start listening, your solutions will start being implemented. And then you have done something for your country.
And welcome back to PSA TV. A very interesting discussion here this morning with Mr. Jaggasar. Of course, we are talking about the anticipated local government elections and how we can get youths more involved in politics. As a young man yourself, what made you, speak out? What was it that gave you that confidence?
Oddly enough, I've always had that bad habit from primary school days of talking in class. Yeah. Whether or not the teacher allowed it or not is something totally different. I always had that situation where if I had something to say, I would say it.
Well, it has taken you places, clearly.
Yes, and it's that kind of advocacy and that kind of issue-raising mentality that has promoted me to the point that I have had now. It has also come with a strong family backing, a strong family support system, and so on. I was early in the week, I went to the Montrose Vedic School to give a career day speech. I spoke to some Standard 4 and Standard 5 students there. And I asked them in the early portion of my speech, I said, who wants to be driving a fancy car? Everybody's hand went up. Who wants to be in a house with a pool? Everybody's hands went up. Who wants to be a policeman? Nobody's hand went up. Who wants to be a politician? Nobody's hand went up.
Yikes.
The question is, no, one or two person. Well, I want to be president. I want to be prime minister. Okay, fine, fair enough. Why? Well, I want to be famous. Okay, but do you want to serve the people? Do you want to help others?
What is that?
Right, and there we go. And that's the first problem. So we had a fun little chat and so on. And by the end of the visit, I asked, well, now who wants to be a politician? Who wants to be an attorney? All 3/4 of the class hands went up. It was a lovely experience.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is that if you have something to say, you say it. If you're better at writing, you write it, you get the message out there. Now, thanks to the advance of social media, it's very easy to get your position out there. However, be very wary of the defamation lawsuits, the statements by Gary Griffith and so on. The bottom line is, listen, it's very simple. If you have a position, if you're saying there is a savannah nearby me and there are lights in the savannah that the bulbs need changing or somebody needs to change the lights to dusk to dawn, write a letter to your councillor. CC the mayor of the corporation, exactly, write something to TNT, pick up the phone at maybe around 10:30 in the morning and ask to talk to whoever is in charge of that area and say, listen, this is my problem, what can you advise me to do? It's very easy to at least get the process started to get something done in this country. And if that particular light situation in your village is your cause, you push that until it gets done. And it will get done. Just look at the farmers market in my area. Everybody said that was a lost cause.
Yeah.
One occasion I posted one of those votes on social media and I said, which one will happen first? Either I will die or the farmers market will open. 78% of my friends on social media said I will die.
Wow.
And look what happened. In less than 18 months, the farmers market is open. It is functioning. The Central farmers are happy. And they are, most importantly, the economy in Central is being boosted.
And speaking of farming, I mean, we need to do so much for our farmers. And I like the way in which agriculture has been going with the inclusion of technology. Now, you don't always see a farmer with, like traditionally what we would have seen a farmer in the past with a big tall boots and, we've kind of make it modern and it's kind of more appealing now.
That's exactly it, and it's more profitable.
Yeah, because you eat healthy, you live a healthier lifestyle. I mean, you don't have to go and buy food all the time. I wish I could do that though, but yeah.
Eat healthy, right? Not the buy food.
They both. Let's not go there. But no, but it's something that we need to do, and as much as we did that to agriculture, which we never thought you could have done, we need to start making politics more appealing to our young people.
You're absolutely right, and the time has to happen now because there are serious issues nationwide. It's a worldwide epidemic. Climate change is a worldwide problem. Terrorism is a worldwide problem. We are being marked as a possible housing island for certain terrorist cells and so on. And because of those things, we need to recognize our position on the international scale, on the regional scale, because Trinidad and Jamaica, Barbados, we are the leaders in our region. So we need to maintain that position and show that not only can we assist our citizens at home, but we can assist the world and the region. And that is, and we need persons now to come up, step up and say, listen, I'll help. Not I'll help because I want to be famous. Not I'll help because I want to be president. I'll help because it's the right thing to do. I'll help because if I don't do it, nobody will. I'll help because if I don't do it, what kind of world will my children be born into?
And again, nobody really thinks about us. Because we have so many selfish people around us. It's not even funny. Like, thinking about what your children will be born into. Okay, cool. When that time comes, we'll see. And that's the responses you get. I am only living for myself. And we don't ever think about our future. I think we need to start to change that. And no better time than now.
Exactly so. I totally agree with you. And it has to be changes happen at home.
Yeah.
The burden is on the parents, it's on the family. The changes happen at school. The burden is on the teachers and the principals. And once you start to see that kind of change, I mean, a simple thing, like in University of the West Indies or SBCS, COSTAT, as the case may UTT, or even at secondary school stage, start having them debate on issues, on national issues. Have a debate instead of elect. The only time you hear anything close like that is when politicians during election time go to the school to try and talk to the students. But why not make it year round? Or why not give the students an opportunity to voice their concerns? In the US, it is that kind of mentality that promotes public service in their political landscape, and it is that kind of teaching and door opening that helps them get jobs on Capitol Hill. Is that kind of environment that promotes advocacy in the mind of a young person, which inevitably turns out to become an advocate for human rights, an advocate for certain community positions, and then inevitably leads to a parliamentarian.
What do you think can be done to make politics more appealing to young people?
Well, and the real concern to a young person is, as you hinted earlier, is that it doesn't benefit me. Politics doesn't give me any financial gain. It's not like a degree. I can't use it to my advantage, right? And I can only get in if I know somebody in there. That has to have a complete overhaul. It has a complete change. The leadership on both sides need to recognize that they are disconnected from the ground. When they accept that, then we can start to see some kind of change. I'm talking about both sides, or all political parties. Because if we were to go downstairs, carry a camera crew downstairs and ask any passerby, who will lead the PNM after Rowley? Not one person will be able to answer. Who will lead the UNC after Kamala? Not one person will be able to identify now who will lead after. And that is a serious problem. It means there is no succession planning, and that is a problem for, again, the youths and the future.
Yeah, succession planning. Wow, I don't think I've ever heard that term being mentioned in any political party. Neither PNM, UNC, none. That's something I hope they consider. Because at some point, you'll have to change leadership. Who are you going to use? The same old faces in the party. And again, I have no problem with older heads in politics, But have a balance.
There we go.
And understand that as much as young people learn from the older heads could also learn from young people. And it's time that we create that level of respect. And sometimes you have to stand up and let people know, well, my opinion is just as good as yours. And it's just an opinion at the end of the day. Because sometimes I know younger people feel intimidated by these older heads. And who wouldn't? You come with your fancy this and that and the other, and you speak your big words. And I remember a girl here, she was a member of the PEP, a youth coordinator, Akila. And she said, sometimes she felt intimidated by some of these politicians, but like you, she would just say what she had to say, and she would just say, okay, I did my part, with confidence, of course. And that is what we need to see going forward, I think. Let
me just touch on this point. Who is a youth in Parliament? No. Look, and the answers to that question is really what hinders more youth to be promoted in parliamentary positions. Let's look at who is a youth in Parliament? Shamfa Kujo.
Yeah.
That alone tells you, well, all right, I might not want to put another youth. So the older heads are looking at that and saying, so my point is that these persons are it's already so hard, and these persons are making it difficult for us to go even further. Yeah. Look at Darrell Smith. I don't have to say anything. That's a national issue now. On the other side of the divide, Saddam Hussein, Barry Padarat. I think Padarat had to walk out of Parliament some time ago. The point I'm making is that on both sides of the divide, there are youths there, yes, but they are not doing much for the rest of us to get there. In fact, they're making it harder. They're making it look as though, well, if older head might look at that and say, well, I've already put somebody there and it's looking too good.
Yeah. They really don't know what they're doing. The
standard of parliamentary debates has steadily declined since 2008 or even before. And it is because of that. So you need to have persons, like I said, training from a young age, people who are able to advocate for their causes, people who understand the plight of the working class, people who understand what is happening on the ground and not disconnected. Those people need to be in Parliament and advocating for rights.
All right, Richard, we are slowly running out of time, so I'm going to ask you your closing comments.
Simply put, I know getting into politics is difficult. I know advocating for your cause is difficult. But if you have something to say as a youth in this country and you believe it is right, you believe it is country first, then by all means do it and it will get done.
I don't think you could have ever said that any better there. Of course, we have been chatting here this morning with Mr. Richard Jaggasar, attorney at law, on issues relating to our youths and politics and just basically encouraging our young people to be aware of your rights and start taking them into consideration. Thank you so much for coming on this morning, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure chatting with you here. So we're going to head to a short break and we'll be joined when we return by Deputy Mayor of Port of Spain, Mr. Helen Morin. Stay with us.